having a wonderful day. Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and it's so good to see everybody. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And as you come in, I hope you'll hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe, everything else. And so today we have a great conversation with a very important person, and I'm honored to get a chance to speak with her. Dr. Christina Parks is the person that was one of the truth tellers during the whole pandemic, or as it looks like Valenti called it, the scamdemic. And Dr. Parks was brave enough to bring us information that you're not going to necessarily get from big pharma. You're not going to get it from government sources. You're not going to get it from people that were making money from watching you get sick. You were people like her are heroes in the community. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to ask Dr. Parks, how you doing today, sister?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good.
We've got snow here. Not so much.
Oh,
where are you? Are you in Atlanta?
I am in Louisville, Kentucky right now, but I'm
Okay.
actually headed back to Chicago soon, and there's plenty of snow to go around up north. So what are we gonna do, right?
I guess it's a white Christmas. I was kind of cursing those people praying for a white Christmas as I tried to clear off my car and almost drove off the road and.
Oh no,
But at
that's
least it's
terrible.
pretty.
It is. I know. The snow is great when I'm inside the house. It's just not that much fun when I have to go out in it. And so as everybody comes in, shout out the city you're from. Let us know what city you're from, and let us know if it's snowing where you live. I see Sonia's from DC. I bet y'all are gonna get some snow soon. Let's see. S-List is in Selma, Alabama. No snow for you, I'm sure. I see Curtis Flood, Arnold Hunter, Shannon Ross from Ohio. Yep, Ohio's going to get some snow. I see Ellen from Florida, Reese from Seattle. I think Florida, no, Seattle. I don't know. I don't know much about Seattle. Denver, of course, you're going to get snow. Pompano Beach for Jamie, you lucky thing, you. And then I saw Vegas and Detroit and Connecticut, Philadelphia, Arlington, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee. So good to see everybody. And if you could, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. So let's jump into it. So Dr. Parks, all right. So let's start from what what's on the forefront of my mind right now. There is I saw just now when I was in the living room with my parents and they were watching TV, and there was something that said doctors are worried about a triple pandemic, triple something, right? They were talking about something,
scarlet fever and the flu and maybe COVID.
Yeah. So doctors are warning about this spread of all this stuff and everything now, and also all these case numbers and deaths and everything. How should we feel? I mean, how concerned should we be going into the winter season, just with all the stuff that's out there?
I think you should be concerned. I know a lot of people that are quite ill. Many of them not jabbed or even double jabbed or anything, because the jabs have compromised people's immune systems. So many of these illnesses have had a chance to sort of really get a foothold. And that's what you hope they don't do. Usually we do not see RSV except for in infants. And my 14-year-old daughter this summer even had RSV. And it was quite severe for her. And she ended up with an ear infection from it. So we ended up having antibiotics. But we also have scarlet fever, which is a strep throat that's going around, so that you're going to need antibiotics. So if you are ill, you may want to go get a strep test to make sure it's not scarlet fever, because that can damage the heart. It can cause neurological damage if it goes too far. I'd also like to kind of put a warning out there about strep related illness. If your child is ill and they start acting really odd, like maybe hiding under the couch, or they don't want their clothes on, they're really sensitive to their clothes touching them, or they don't want to put on their shoes, or they're just having sort of like psychotic outbursts, and you're like, what? Why have you lost your mind? There's something called PANDAS, and it's a psychiatric autoimmune disorder associated with strep that affects the neural system. And what happens is your body makes antibodies to the strep bacteria to attack it, to destroy it. But in some people, those antibodies can actually cross-react with their own nervous system and cause all sorts of nervous disorders. And so usually the change in behavior is quite abrupt. And just because this is such a large outbreak, I want to let people know about that. And so if that is you, that it, whether it happens now or in the future or with a relative, it's just something we should that you should know about. It's called pandas. Most times, if you go to your healthcare practitioner and it is a strep infection, then they prescribe antibiotics. You're going to see an improvement in behavior. However, sometimes it can relapse. And if that's the case with you, or if you've seen this in the past, you do need to find a practitioner who is very aware of this particular disorder called pandas so that you can get the appropriate treatment. So because there is so much strep, I just want to give that disclaimer.
Let me know if you guys can hear me. Hey, Dr. Parks, can you hear me now?
I can. Did we lose you?
Yeah, I was out for a second. Were you able to see me? What did you see?
No, we weren't able to see you. I don't know if I was live or not, but I just continued on. You can ask everybody if you have a chat if they were continuing to see me. I wasn't sure if you were just enlarging me or if you were gone. I wasn't sure what was going on.
Oh, I was gone. I was out of there. Yeah, I said, uh-oh, the feds are watching. We're in trouble again. Hanging out.
I don't know. Well, did they hear me or do I need to repeat that? Did everyone hear about the strep?
Yeah, everybody, give me a yes if you heard, if you were able to hear Dr. Parks. Jamie says I was viewable the whole time. Okay, so you were able to hear and see her. Okay, good. Well, you're the one they need to hear and see anyway, so don't worry about me. I'm just gonna hang in there. So that's good. She's the professional too, but she's also an outlaw that's gonna get. I get in trouble hanging out with radical people like her, but but I'm gonna tell you, people like yourself and Rizza Islam, I love you because people have the right to hear different perspectives on some of what's going on. I know enough about capitalism to know that big pharma's incentives are not necessarily in alignment with what's best for people. I also know enough about things like money to know that it doesn't make any sense that we spend more on healthcare than any country on the planet, but our healthcare system is like 31st or 32nd in the world or something. So let me ask you this. So in light of what you've kind of seen in the last 2 or 3 years, I think about this also as I saw Moderna was actually being recommended by analysts as another stock that's expected to rise. What's kind of the post-pandemic landscape as you see it in big pharma in terms of things that have changed since the pandemic? Because I can only imagine that they're seeing, oh my God, look at how much money we can make from people being scared, et cetera. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Well, I never finished the first question, so I'll finish that too. You're like, she went on for 20 minutes, and she didn't answer it. So let me finish that because we do have this triple pandemic, and they're going to be trying to get people to take all sorts of medications, probably Tamiflu, and they're telling you need to be jabbed against all of these different things, and that's the worst thing you can do. It's gonna further compromise your immune system, especially right after it. So if somebody has just gotten that, their immune system is going to be compromised for like 2 to 3 weeks at least. So you might not want to go visiting because, they might be getting sick anytime then. But that said, one thing you can do, and I will probably talk about this a little bit in my class, is, Dr. Brownstein has a protocol, and I've shared that before. It's high dose vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not recommending this. I'm just telling you what he does. And so he does many of these different vitamins and then nebulizing something like hydrogen peroxide, really low dose. And if you are in my class, I'll go through exactly how to do that based on what I've learned from him. And I did go and meet with him. So that, if you are really starting to feel really ill, you want to hit it quick and you want to hit it hard. There are also some nasal sprays out there that have carrageenan, which some people can be sensitive to, and iodine. And what they do is they basically coat your nasal mucosa and they kill whatever viruses. They don't allow stuff to get a foothold. And there's actually a lot of clinically reviewed research on that it's quite effective. And we need iodine anyway. So so there are different things, even just rinsing your nose out. And again, with if you do nebulize, if you're actually ill, if you do it at the beginning of the illness, really, it's very dilute, hydrogen peroxide or very dilute iodine in saline. And don't just go run out and do it. Make sure you get a protocol and know how to do it, which I will be going over in my class. And what that's doing is that's killing all the virus so that it doesn't set up a severe infection when you start it right away, when you feel that sore throat and whatnot coming on, because people are getting quite ill and the illnesses are lasting 9 to 12 days and things like that. So you want to hit it early, you want to hit it hard, and keep your immune system up. And we'll talk more about that. And so those are the ways. And I think that this is a changing landscape that people, usually we would just get sick and sort of ride it out and maybe go get some cold medicine from the store. But I think people are really looking for more natural ways to support their health, to take care of this without having to resort to pharmaceuticals of any type, so to speak.
Well, everybody who just came in, I'm speaking with Dr. Christina Parks. She has a doctorate in cell and molecular biology. Did I say that right? From the University of Michigan. Yeah, and I'm going to forgive the fact that she's from Michigan because I went to Ohio State and they embarrassed us on national TV. And so anyway, Dr. Parks also happens to be an expert on your health, and she's partnered with us in the Black Business School. She's agreed to do this. I'm very happy about it. To do basically a 4-week masterclass on all the things that the pharmaceutical companies will never tell you about your health. She's going to guide you through 4 weeks, and we're going to talk about that in a minute in terms of what she's going to offer. If you'd like to sign up, I actually put a link right on my website. We get started on the 22nd. You can go to boycewatkins.com, and you can find it right there, right near the top. And look for Dr. Christina Parks Masterclass, Protecting Your Health from a Toxic World. So she's going to start that on the 22nd. So do me a favor, everybody, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. So let me ask you about this, Dr. Parks. So when you're working with the students over the next 4 weeks, what kinds of things do you think that students should understand or that they're going to learn as it pertains to health and taking care of themselves?
Right. Well, what they're going to learn is that your overall toxic load really determines how effective and efficient your immune system is. It really determines your predisposition to go into severe disease, like severe COVID in response to an infection. And it also determines eventually, if your toxic load is high enough for long enough, whether it's going to basically result in some sort of manifestation of some sort of disease or dysfunction. And that's going to depend on your own epigenetic susceptibility. So for some people, it might be diabetes. For some people, it might be autoimmunity. We're going to talk about what I feel are the key toxins, how to avoid them and how to detox from them, how to detox in general, because most of us, we have so many more chemicals than ever before. And specifically regards to our children, what toxins we need to be most concerned about and when during their development. And I'm going to go through all of that. I'm also going to go through and show you the different parts and pieces. So we're talking about like our gut and our cellular health, how all those fit together and how you can support your body. Like a lot of these things aren't complicated, but you have to understand how all the parts and pieces fit together so you have the whole picture. A lot of times online, you know how it is. Everyone's like, I got this and this is the one thing and it's going to fix you. And we'd all be great if every one thing that was on there. But the truth is our health is multifaceted. And the things that we need to do aren't necessarily that complex or that expensive, but we do need to know how all the picture fits together and what the most important things are so that we're not off chasing rainbows here and there thinking, this newest fad. And a lot of maybe some of the things people offer aren't bad. They may be good, but if those core pieces aren't in place, then you're probably not going to see a lot of improvement. So I'm there to show you what the core pieces that you absolutely have to have in place and how to detox your body, or how to be aware of how to do that so that, your immune system and everything else, your whole body can be functioning better.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. It's a personal question. Now, in fact, I'm going to ask everybody in the chat to give me a yes or no on this, in response to this very simple question I'm going to ask you. How many of you, either yourself or someone that is close to you, have come down with cancer? Give me a yes in the chat if you or someone you love has died of cancer, or is sick with cancer right now, or if you have cancer, my heart goes out to you if you do. Give me a yes or no in the chat if cancer has affected your family. Cancer's really hit my family, super hard. And I'm not going to, lay out my case for any sort of sympathy. But because I know so many other people are going through this, right? It's almost like mass incarceration. So many Black families go through it. It's like everybody's got an uncle that went to jail or a sister or a cousin, right? So when I talk about my sibling, my brother that went to prison and my father that went to prison and my uncle that went to prison, it's like, yeah, join the club, right? So cancer seems to be kind of everywhere. Now, has it always been this way? And if not, what is going on? Why is cancer just as prevalent, damn near prevalent as the common cold now?
So I've done a super deep dive into this, as well as related to COVID and the jabs. And remember, we never used to see cancer in young children when we were young. It was almost non-existent. And now, like, we have a small school of about 300 kids, and at any given time, 3 or 4 kids have cancer all the time, every year. I mean, sometimes it's the same kid from year to year, but then one will either move on or unfortunately not make it, and then it's replaced by another child. That's 1 in 100. That's an absolutely unacceptable rate for cancer. So here's the thing. Guess your immune system surveils your body, and when it finds cancerous cells, it targets and destroys them. And if your immune system, so most people are getting cancer because their immune system isn't functioning properly, or I should say, cancer is allowed to grow. You get cancer all the time, and your immune system takes care of it. It kills those cancerous cells. That's its job. And so in children, generally, their immune system works very, very well. And so they don't get cancer. The older you get, the less effective your immune system is, the more likely you are to get cancer. However, when you hyperstimulate the immune system, and we're going to go into this more in detail in my class, if you stimulate it, first what happens is your T cells, if you just keep stimulating and stimulating chronically again and again and again, your T cells, which kill the cancer, get exhausted. So first of all, they can't help you fight any infections. And secondarily, they're not patrolling for cancer like they should. And so basically when that happens, it allows cancer to just sort of continue to grow because they're not recognizing it. As far as this particular infection and the jabs go, so there are many mechanisms by which this is causing cancer. So one of the things that causes cancer to sort of blow up and grow really fast is angiogenesis. And what that means is the cancer gets its own blood supply. If it's got its own blood supply, it has all the nutrients it needs to grow really fast. And there's something that stimulates angiogenesis. It's called vascular endothelial growth factor. Okay, there won't be a quiz. But what is vascular endothelium? It's the lining of your blood vessels. Now, both the spike protein, whether it's from the jab or the infection, but more so the jab, is damaging the lining of the blood vessels. Damaging it so much they want to repair themselves. So what do? They make this growth factor, and they make this vascular endothelial growth factor. That stimulates angiogenesis. So when people have high VEGF as a response to either the jab or the infection, it is going to drive these cancers getting their own blood supply. So you might have had a small cancer before, suddenly it's going to explode and grow. That, and we already talked about, if you're having chronic immune activation, which post-COVID syndrome does that, getting jab after jab or booster after booster does that, then your T cells, which survey for cancer, are not going to be active. There's actually several other mechanisms that also contribute to cancer with these, but I think that kind of gives you an idea of why we're seeing what we're seeing. I might also add that, like, some of these viruses actually do insert into your DNA and cause insertional mutagenesis. And so they cause mutations of your DNA that can also, viruses are, especially if they integrate into your DNA, are very highly correlated with cancer. I talked, like last year or the year before, a little bit about the polio vaccine, which was grown on monkey cells. The virus was grown on monkey cells, and it got the SV40, the simian monkey virus 40, from those monkey cells. And this is the prototypical cancer-causing virus. It's now found in 40 to 60% of human tumors, of certain kinds of tumors. So we are injecting these adventitious agents, which means contaminating viruses and bacteria, which are riding along with these jabs. And when you inject them, apparently the polio, you either got a sugar pill, which wasn't as bad, you weren't as likely to get this virus. But if you got the injection, the polio, you were more, which doesn't make any sense because the injection was supposed to be inactivated with formaldehyde. But apparently this formaldehyde didn't kill this monkey virus that was riding along in the jab. So when we say we're concerned that they're not doing their job, the thing is, they knew this. They had injected the jab into hamsters and they got these huge tumors. And And so they're like, oh, it's probably a virus. We know viruses can contribute to cancer, but we think it's okay. We're going to continue to investigate it while we give this shot to millions of people across the United States. And I mean, what do you even say? They knew. They knew.
Ooh, okay. Wow. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of intrigued by this conversation. Everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Christina Parks. She is a PhD in cell and molecular biology from the University of Michigan. We're talking about your health, the things that pharmaceutical companies will never tell you. Dr. Parks is doing a 4-week masterclass that could save your life. She's honored us by partnering with us in the Black Business School to connect with many of our people as possible. We start on the 22nd. If you'd like to join, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. There's a link right there. Just look for Dr. Christina Parks' name, and you can still sign up at a discount. So feel free to click on that link and join us on the 22nd. And hit the thumbs up button, everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell on this channel because, as you can see, our goal is to bring intelligence to our community and smart people like Dr. Parks, in my opinion. Give me a yes or no if you agree. I think people like Dr. Parks should be as famous as any basketball player. Dr. Parks should be as famous as any football player. She should definitely be more famous in our community than Dr. Fauci. How about that? And so, I give me a yes in the chat if you agree with that. So, Dr. Parks, I want to ask you a question. Let's talk about Fauci for a minute. He's got his education just like you have your education. I don't know who has more, but I know you're right up there. And I'd be curious to know, what are your thoughts on him? I mean, you have people that look at him like a hero, and then you have people that think he should go to jail. And then everyone else is in the middle. Where do you stand on that spectrum, and how do you feel about Fauci's performance in his role?
I think your options are a little bit too tame. I think there are some things that might call for the death penalty.
Well, what he did was pretty interesting, right? So give me your take. Tell me about
here's why. Because he absolutely knew he was lying. So there are many doctors that are pushing these, and there are many different scientists who have assumed that their colleagues did their job. But I know, and so there's many people that are like, well, the science changed. They didn't know. No, they did know, and we were trying to tell you because we knew, because we have the same training. When I learned that this was experimental gene therapy, my jaw dropped. This is not a safe technology. If you had terminal cancer and you wanted to use this type of therapy, if you were missing a gene and you wanted to try it because you can't really live without that, then that risk-benefit analysis might be a little different. But to take really perfectly healthy people and a disease that's perfectly treatable, he did his seminal work on HIV/AIDS, which is treated with hydroxychloroquine overseas. So he absolutely knew that it had broad antiviral properties, right? He probably knew about ivermectin as well. So we know that they knew because we all had the same training. We know that he knew that masks didn't work. We knew all of this. We know that he knew that the jabs were not going to prevent transmission. He absolutely knew, right? So he knew all of this, and he knew that remdesivir was toxic. So there's many things that he already knew, and he came forth and blatantly lied. There are other people that I can't really know exactly what their sphere of knowledge could or would have been, but we saw that Robert Redfield, I think the old CDC director, he didn't stay CDC director for long. He went to, I think, Maryland and headed their public health, and he changed his stance on a lot of things. So, and I don't know why he couldn't have just had that same stance when he was head of CDC. That was a little, bit more on our side, but, and I don't know the full scope of that. But obviously, I don't know exactly what everybody knew, but a lot of these people, Fauci for sure, and Dr. Deborah Birx just came out and said, well, I knew that these weren't going to prevent transmission. Wait. You knew they weren't going to prevent transmission, but you agreed to mandate it on the entire population based on its ability to prevent transmission, including Black people. And okay, so I was just on another interview where I was talking about genetic susceptibilities, and we will get into that because I think that this, when you say this could save your life, this is one of those areas where something that could save your life if you act on it. And I was talking about how if you have certain mutations, a jab or a virus or a medication can cause your red blood cells to blow up. It's called hemolytic anemia. And just today, I received a message from someone that watched that show and said that her son had gotten the jab, that he had 2 mutations, one in sickle cell, one in a thalassemia, and he went into crisis and had to be hospitalized for a week. Now, at least they caught it, but then it had secondary problems. He's on steroids. There were all a sort of cascade of problems that came from him going into crisis. He should never have been jabbed because they know that that level of metabolic stress can cause someone with those genetic predispositions to go into crisis. And so you need to ask your doctor. And in fact, you just need to know better. You need to test yourself. I haven't even tested myself. My son's from Africa. I haven't tested him. So I'm not saying I'm, do as I do, but do as I say. But I know I'm not sending my son out to get any jabs or any medications either. So we need to, as a community, know our status of these different genetic susceptibilities and not be played, because that alone could kill us and our infants too.
Wow. Okay, so Dr. Parks, let me ask you this. And by the way, I'm speaking with Dr. Christina Parks. I'm gonna put her name on the screen so you guys can follow her. And also, if you want to take her masterclass, which is going to start in 2 days, you can just go to my website, boycewatkins.com, and we're going to be doing 4 weeks of deep dive health training. So if that's of interest to you, just go to my website, just right there, and hit the thumbs up button everywhere, everybody. So let me ask this, Dr. Parks. You talked about our kids and our infants and our babies and things like that. And I've heard a lot of conversation about giving jabs to just any and everybody that you can give a jab to. What should we know about giving those jabs to young children, say under 5 or 6 years old? I mean, and I know you've expressed this, you've explained a lot of this before, but make it plain for us in terms of, what parents should be thinking about if they make that kind of choice for their kids.
So first of all, there's no liability for the pharmaceutical companies. The reason you need to know this is when I remember we adopted our children, I was like, what are all of these? And I'm a scientist, so there was no way I was giving it until I knew. For instance, there's a shot for a sexually transmitted disease given on the day of birth. Are your kids really that promiscuous? Are they, injecting drugs that they need a hepatitis B vaccine on the day of birth with 250 micrograms of aluminum? You have a child that has one of those mutations, that's going to send them into crisis. Have they screened for that? Do they recognize it? Are they going to give that child a blood transfusion? Like, what, do you know what I'm saying? This could be really serious, especially for people in our communities. 1 in 10 boys has a mutation that could cause this. All right. So, but in general, you absolutely have to know. So this is where it gets a little more complicated, because most parents are not ready to go from all jabs to no jabs, right? It's just too much of a change. It's like, well, what if I miss something important? I don't know. And you do really have to be educated about how to deal with different viral diseases, how to promote your child's health, right? And so what you need to do is first educate yourself about the schedule and go, hepatitis B vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease on the first day of birth? I don't think we need that one for my family, right? So, and you can make your own decision, but there's going to be some that you're going to be like, well, my husband and I, we're pretty sure that one's a no-go, okay? And there's others that you're going to feel more torn about. And so in the class, and what I do generally is I educate about the different types of vaccines, because there's different, like the MMR, remember, that we've gotten as a child. Why is that? Why are Black boys 4 times more likely to regress into autism if they're jabbed on time with that vaccine versus after they're 3 years old? So you might be like, well, we're not giving it to them at least until he's 3. You can reduce their risk of autism significantly just by delaying that jab. And so the live viral vaccines are different than the subunit vaccines, and they have different risks and different benefits. And so
and Dr. Parks, I never interrupt, but I don't want to interrupt you, but just because we know how the YouTube bots are with alleged misinformation, maybe there's another word we can use
I'll
besides
try.
the
Yep.
B word. Yeah, but
I know. I caught
I
myself
would.
saying it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have interrupted you if it wasn't necessary. I just don't want us to be deplatformed and have your voice get muted, because your voice is really important. So please continue. But just I want to mention that. Go ahead, please.
Yes. So thank you, because it's I get thinking about things. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to understand the schedule and to understand the risk, and we're going to talk about that in depth in terms of many things. In terms of what is toxic, how does that affect your child, how does that affect their brain development, because the timing of these is important too. And that's why I get very angry, because we could make some relatively minor changes to the schedule that would increase safety many, many, many fold. And so if you're in that mindset where you're not ready to say none for my child, then there are options that are safer. And you need to know, what should I be looking for? First of all, I need to check and see if my child is susceptible. That's going to make a decision whether, how many you might give or when. And you need to know the timing. And you need to know which ones are more important to you. And then you need to know what to look for, because if you start seeing some of these behaviors, you need to know sooner, or different manifestations, you need to know sooner rather than later. Okay, my child's not reacting to this. Somebody else's child may be able to tolerate it, but my child's not, or my child needs to detox. Or maybe and how can there are a lot of people who are in the foster care system that have no choice about those children that they foster. All right. If they don't do it, the children are taken away. But many that I know have been able to stretch out the schedule. And so you need to get a lot of this information so you can understand what supplements can you either do as a nursing mother, or to give a small child that are very safe. Or I don't even want to say supplements. How can you make sure that their immune system and their whole body is supported and detoxed, or whatever you can do to make sure that they are in the best state possible. Because what happens a lot of times, this is not generally the first time that it happens, the first jab, and then the kid is gone. That does happen occasionally. What happens usually is the system is stressed, and then it's stressed, and then it's stressed, and then it's stressed. And at some point, it's so stressed, it absolutely just can't absorb all that stress anymore, and really bad things happen. And so, and many times there's a lot of warning signs, and I can tell you what those are, so that, if you're doing that, you say, oh, this is a warning sign, and you'll recognize it, because many of us didn't recognize it. Things like eczema, things like earaches are very, very strongly correlated.
Well, everybody, I really think, and the reason I'm really happy to talk to Dr. Parks is because I don't know if I assume you all agree. I think that in general, when you talk about your kids and your health, you really just need a second opinion. If anything hasn't been taught to us as Black people in this country, it's that we can't just sort of listen to whatever XYZ is saying. We have to go to people, that have a different perspective. And the deal is that with Dr. Parks, I'm going to say this, Dr. Parks, is that I remind everybody they don't have to agree with everything you're saying. They can be skeptical. They should be skeptical. But it really bothered me during the pandemic when things got so political that people like yourself, with really solid credentials, were just sort of being labeled as misinformation. And it just got to this crazy space where, free ideas weren't allowed to be shared, because everybody was sort of hide under this guise of, well, it's dangerous. They're killing people, right? And then when you start saying that, when you say someone's dangerous and they're killing people, then that gives you an excuse to be, a complete fascist. It's just they can't talk because what they're saying is killing people. Or when they would say that about Farrakhan, well, he's dangerous. Well, how many people has Farrakhan killed? When's the last time anybody heard anything about Farrakhan or anybody around him going out and killing people? No, it's not happening. So it just really got to the point where it was just kind of crazy. And I want to ask you a question about those politics of it. What's that been like for you? Since let's go back to the height of the pandemic, where it really became almost McCarthyist, in terms of the environment we were in, with people just taking each other down. You had siblings that wouldn't go near each other, families being ripped apart over this stuff. What was that like, say, in the middle or toward the end of 2020, when we're in kind of the heat of the pandemic, and you're still speaking your truth? Like, how did that feel for you?
As far as like, people thinking I'm a nut job, most people find me really credible. So when they hear me, I really haven't had any problem. But what was really difficult was when I was warning people, I was so heavily censored that I couldn't get the word out like I wanted to, and especially not to the Black community. And you were one of the first to pull me on board. And I mean, I was censored from day one. I was speaking to live crowds in Western Michigan for quite some time. So it wasn't that I wasn't, but anything, you couldn't upload me to YouTube. You couldn't, and who was I? I was nobody. I wasn't well known. But they knew I was there and they were censoring my voice very strongly. And when everyone, I was giving all of these seminars to avoid the jabs, and then everyone just ran out and got them. And I was in a state of shock and grief. And if you see some of the data that are coming out now, it's horrific. It's really horrific. And so I knew that this was going to have horrific results. And so I hoped that it would not be that way. And I still hope that it won't be as bad as it's looking. But it was really for a while. And so now when everyone's like, oh my gosh, look what's happening, I'm like, I grieved back then because I knew what was happening. And I just felt this enormous sense of a burden and a grief that I was not able to stop this train wreck.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. My wife is we're all a bunch of nerdy PhDs, and my wife's doctorate's in social work. She's a full professor of social work, and my doctorate's in finance, and Dr. Parks, her doctorate's in cell and molecular biology. And I can say this, as my wife and I were kind of observing what was going on. And I'm going to just be honest, our families, we didn't all have the same opinion. Half our family felt one way, half our family felt the other way. But we were taking in all the information. And when we saw your testimony with the Michigan House of Representatives, and then I remember when we first saw it, we were like, wow, this is so cool that she's talking about Black people, and she's being honest, and she's giving a perspective that is that's unapologetically direct and in contradiction to the BS that we kind of felt was going on. We kind of saw this sort of happening. And I remember us watching things like C-SPAN, because we were like, we just need to see the press conference. I don't want to hear CNN spin of what they think the person was saying. We want to hear what they actually said. Right. And you would find a big difference. The propaganda was insane. Even the current CEO, you may not know this, Dr. Parks, but even the current CEO of CNN, oddly enough, he blasted the liberal left. He said, a lot of people are using half-truths and name-calling, and they think that that's journalism. I couldn't believe he said that. He must be on his way out. They must be ready to fire him.
We actually, at the Defeat the Mandates, one of the people organizing was somebody that was at NBC that actually still had a job. I don't know how, but that that it was such a totalitarian environment there that they woke up, and so we have a lot of sort of I don't know, I'll say matrix people.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that category too. I used to go on CNN a lot about 12 years ago until I realized I used to think, I thought I was liberal, like about 2010. I was like, yeah, I'm a liberal. But then I started seeing stuff that didn't make any sense. I was like, I'm not going to be a part of this. I can't make myself dumb enough to go along with whatever crap you guys are doing, because this is stupid. And I'd be curious to ask you this. And by the way, before I ask you this next question, I want to let everybody know, could you please take a moment? We're building independent Black-owned media, and you guys see how important this is. With Dr. Parks, we jumped in, when my wife and I saw Dr. Parks, we went out of our way to say, how do we get in touch with this lady? Hopefully we can get a chance to talk. And when Dr. Parks spoke at the convention, and I was so happy to have you there. And so I hope everyone will hit the thumbs up and subscribe button, because we're trying to grow the platform, because we just want you to have freedom of expression, freedom of ideas. We want you to hear from the smart people in the community, not just the rappers and not just the political puppets. Y'all need to hear from the real people in the community that really care about y'all. So that's what we're fighting for. So if you agree, if you could take one moment, make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live, because it is an uphill battle, because we're consistently getting shadow banned by the elites that don't want you to even have a choice. Okay. So and then another thing too, before I ask Dr. Parks the next question, I want to remind you guys, Dr. Parks is doing a 4-week masterclass on health. and all the things that you need to know about health, about jabs, about toxins, cancers, whatever question you guys have for Dr. Parks, you'll be able to ask that question in a small group setting. So just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. The link is right there. And she gets started on the 22nd, and she's partnering with us in the Black Business School because we are doing this. We are building a Black-owned institution that is here to serve our people, and we're not apologizing for nothing. All right, so Dr. Parks, let me ask you this. This will be my last question for you. So since the pandemic is over and Fauci is out, I guess pretty much, there's a lot of like I don't know about everybody else in here, but I was kind of sitting back saying, "See, I told you so," right? Like a lot of us are sitting back like, yeah, we told you it wasn't as bad as you said it was. Give us some data. Like, is there some data results, test results, stories you've seen that kind of are redeeming for someone like you? It's got to be satisfying to know that you were right all along. I mean, what have you sort of seen that we can carry away to just sort of, show that, those of us who didn't freak out and panic, who just, socially distanced, maybe wore a mask, washed our hands, took our vitamins and sea moss and everything else that most of us survived. What have you seen in terms of data that really shows that they were kind of overreacting during the pandemic?
So this comes in a couple parts. And first, I want to go back to what you were talking about before in terms of, people choosing sides and everything. And as if I'm some anti whatever person. The thing is, if you hear me speak what I just talked about with the childhood schedule and things like that, I don't say, I don't come out and go, don't do this. This is terrible. It's complicated science. And they're acting like, and that should ring some bells with some red flags when they take really complicated science and say, safe and effective, right? Experimental gene therapy, and they act like it's a child's thing. No, this is really complex, and there's many sides. And I try to simplify it, but don't think they've made it like a magic pill. So to go to your question, there's several sides to that. So first of all, how severe was this illness? And I would like to say that in some people, definitely that were predisposed, either genetically or by a high toxic load or whatever else, a vulnerability in their health, it could be problematic. However, we had treatments, and they knew we had treatments, and they suppressed the treatments so that they could make money. And then they demonized things, talking about horses and all kinds of other mess. They demonized something that won the Nobel Prize in 2015, so that they could make money, so that they it was murder for profit, as far as I'm concerned. So those lives could have been saved. Both of those medications actually prevent transmission, unlike the jab. And so this could have been shut down by the fall of 2020. It could have been over. But they wanted to press for these technologies. There were many people who were very pro jab that were screaming, this new technology hasn't been tested. This new technology is not safe. So I would say that it's hard to say whether it was or wasn't as bad, because if we had let it just run its course, it even without any treatment, it probably would have been done by fall. But I think that I think that the way that it was handled actually perpetuated it. And I think that there was more, this is just my own opinion, speculation, more than one virus. There was that very severe virus that died out, and many people think that there was more than one virus that was either, I don't know, seeded or accidentally released or whatever you want to call it. So, and then, again, the jabs made people immunocompromised with higher viral loads, and they selected for new strains of the virus. So they perpetuated it. And anyone that was knowledgeable in immunology was screaming that this was going to happen, that this was not, because they didn't prevent transmission. So they selected for strains of the virus that were resistant to the jab. And so we told people that this was going to perpetuate and create new mutants. So there's no way to say even how, like if we had just actually used our brains, it would have just, like a flu, it would have just gone through everybody and then been done. And if we had treated people properly, the death rate would have been extremely, extremely low. As far as, and I told you so from the jabs, you won't find me gloating because the information that we have is absolutely horrific. The fetal demise, which means the death of babies who are right before they're being born, is astronomical. 80% miscarriage in the first trimester. What we're finding is that there are babies that, when they're born, they lack most of the cells that they need to make new cells for their immune system and for their blood system. This is going to compromise their immune system considerably to the point where it could be very severe. So, and that can have catastrophic effects. So what we're seeing, the rise in cancers, I believe, excess mortality is up 40%. So these are like 800-year events in terms of the number of people that are passing. And it's being hidden. But it's like when you talk to people, almost everybody knows someone in the last year that's lost a family member or two to a stroke or a blood clot. We now have a mechanism for the myocarditis and for some of these others. It looks like that our tissues, so this is why this experimental gene therapy was so horrific. Usually when you have a jab, there's a small amount of protein that goes into your body and it's never inside your cells. And antibodies or immune cells recognize it and they're like, oh yeah, that's a bad thing. And then they remember it so that if they see it again, they can attack it right away. This is very different because it sends genetic material inside your cells. And that genetic material then makes the spike protein. The spike protein is the part of the virus that was the most toxic. And so what you have is your own cells making a viral foreign protein. How do you think your immune system is going to react to that? It's going to attack those cells. It's going to attack that protein. And so the latest studies are showing that's exactly what happens. In the cells that take up this RNA, this mRNA, and make the protein, immune cells are clustering in that area and are attacking those proteins and the cells and are creating a very hyperinflammatory condition that is damaging the tissue so bad in the heart that it looks like it's sending the heart into afibrillation, where it just sort of starts doing this and causing heart attack and sudden death. So they did autopsies on a bunch of people who had died within 1 week of it. And in several of them, this is what they found. That the tissues, and they found it in the brain tissues as well, that it's making this protein, and that immune cells are clustering in those areas and basically eating your own tissue, eating away your own brain in response to it. So the body is attacking these cells that are making this. So, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, we don't want to gloat on that. Yeah, that's wow, that's terrible. Sheesh. It's sad to hear all that. It's painful.
And the thing is that we knew that that's what gene therapy is designed to do. But you're supposed to use a gene from the person's own body that they, a human gene that is not going to be attacked. It's going to make a human protein that's normal for that body. Even still, you can have some of those risks, but there were so many risks associated with this new technology that to give it to healthy people was unethical, and to give it to children and babies is absolutely a crime.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Dr. Christina Parks, who cares enough to come in here and share information that your pharmaceutical companies will never share with you. And I can also tell you guys, as a finance person, I understand capitalism very well, and the incentives are not to do the right thing for the American people. The incentive is to make money, and I deeply believe that all these health issues and cancer cases and even things like the rise in autism and all that, you can link it always link it back to the money. That's the downside, the dark side of capitalism. And I want everybody to be aware of that. as I train you guys on wealth and everything else, I'm not training you to be a capitalist. You'll never hear me say I think you should be a hardcore capitalist, because the consequences are unbearable. So everybody, I want you guys to know Dr. Christina Parks is doing a 4-week health training masterclass in the Black Business School. It's going to start on the 22nd. She's agreed to partner with us. And I put the link right there on my website, boycewatkins.com. She's going to spend 4 weeks doing deep dives, answering your questions, going through charts and analysis. She's super smart. She knows what she's talking about. And I encourage you guys to consider it if health is something that matters to you and you want to hear a deep dive perspective from a very smart Black woman. And I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Parks, for joining us today. It's always a pleasure and an honor to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. And I hope to see many people in the class. And I'm going to, again, some of this damage, there is no easy fix, but there are ways to really support your body. And I am working with many practitioners and scientists. And so I'm have the very most cutting edge data for what is having the most significant positive impacts on helping people reclaim their health. And it's not just the people who were jabbed, because this virus is having long-term inflammatory and other effects on people as well as the fact that we're all being exposed to all of these illnesses because people's immune systems are compromised. So we want to make sure that everyone is able to be the healthiest they can. And we're going to give you what I feel are really the underlying foundational pieces so that you feel really empowered to take control of your health, and you don't have to worry, is that the truth or is this a scam or whatever it is.
There we go. So everybody, for Dr. Parks, let her know how health conscious we are. Everybody type the hashtag health is wealth in the chat. Put health is wealth and hashtag it. Make it all one word. So that way we can really get that out there. Dr. Parks is, a big part of my journey has been that as I talk about wealth, I started realizing I started saying health is wealth, but I said, actually, health really isn't wealth. Health is more important than wealth. Mm-hmm. Because you see people all the time, they destroy their health to go get wealth, and then they lose all their wealth trying to get their health back. Big pharma will take every penny out of your bank account, and then
you can't enjoy anything if you feel terrible and you're really ill. And so it really is the most important thing you can do, and the most important thing you can know for you, for your grandbabies, for somebody has to know what's going on. Like you said, I mean, literally something as simple in the right circumstances at the right moment as vitamin D and vitamin C could save a life.
There we go. So everybody, pay attention to what this sister has to say. I mean, we got to listen to the smart Black women and smart Black men in our community. These are the people that will keep you alive and keep you healthy. And you guys see me being very open about my health journey. I get out here, Dr. Parks, and I go running, and I'm slow and fat, but I do my best, and I just keep it moving, and it's led to some really good consequences and positive results, and I'm really happy about it. And I want to encourage everybody, just do your best. You don't have to die the way your granddaddy did or the way your grandmama did. You can live, and I want you to live a quality life. And we got to think about our health. We got to think about what we eat. Walk away from some of this poison. We got to think about being active. We got to think about what we're putting in our bodies. We got to think about, looking outside of pharmaceuticals to get what we need, because these people will sell you just enough pills to string you along and keep you alive long enough for them to take all your money, and then you'll die anyway. So let's live. Let's get ahead of the curve. We ain't got to just do what everybody else is doing. You do what you need to do. And so thank you, Dr. Parks. I appreciate it. And everybody who wants to join Dr. Parks' masterclass, it starts on the 22nd. Just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. We actually discounted it substantially for those of you that are here today. So if you get there by tonight, you can actually get a deep discount on the class. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com and take a look. Thank you again, Dr. Parks. It is always an honor to see you.
Thank you for having me. And just remember, health is wealth. And so we put that off, but it's time. It's definitely time. Hey, and I'm 52, so I don't think I look too bad.
No, she does not look 52. Black don't crack. Type that in the chat. How about that? Black don't crack, because you don't look no 52. I know some 22-year-olds who who don't look as great as Dr. Parks. But I gotta be careful. I don't want to make it sound like I'm flirting because my wife is beautiful too. Her black don't crack either, but I'm telling you, black women.
Yeah, and I'd love to have a discussion with you and your wife sometime too. Make sure that you guys are all on the right track, because I know you're so busy you probably won't even be in the masterclass.
Yeah, well, I am gonna pop in though. I am gonna pop in. Yeah, I'm gonna be there because I think because I am thinking about health related issues, especially in the beginning when I was telling you how cancer kind of invaded our family in so many ways, and I'm like, I'm not going down that route. I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. We're going in a different direction. So what you're saying is being taken to heart by a lot of people in this chat. You saved a lot of lives today. I can guarantee it. So thank you for doing that. All right.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about cancer. So and I'll be taking questions. There's a lot going on behind the scenes about that. So stuff will get us banned, right?
All right. Well, I can't wait. All right, everybody. So just go to my website, boycewatkins.com, if you'd like to join Dr. Parks' class. It's deeply discounted until midnight tonight. So just go to my website. You can sign up and you can ask Dr. Parks questions. And she's got slides and materials and all kinds of breakdowns that will benefit you. So God bless you, everybody. Please have a wonderful day. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. And don't forget, this podcast is on Spotify and Apple. Just look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown. You can find it there. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. God bless you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.